I've been doing jiu-jitsu overall for since 1999. I started, training Japanese
That's
jiu-jitsu,
24 years, guys, for
which is
those that want to do math
it
quickly.
was a style which I started in the Dominican Republic. Actually, it was called the Miyama-Ryu. It's called the School of the Three Mountains. It's very simple. Actually, the creator of the style, it was a Puerto Rican guy. He was in the army here in the U.S. And basically, he was a sniper in the World War II. So he went to Japan, and in his time off, he started doing martial arts there. Obviously, you're in Japan, you're in the spotlight of all martial arts. So his first passion was actually learning how to do judo. So he started doing judo, and obviously you have like a lot of like spare time like back then. So eventually he started training, 16 hours a day. 16, yes, it's 1 6 hours a day, and training judo, which is all my judoka friends. They know it's not easy, but this guy made it to black belt in judo in the Kodokan in Japan in 6 months. So obviously, it was a great accomplishment. And while being in Japan, he also, had interest in other martial arts such as Aikido, which he started training with Morihei Ueshiba, which is the founder of Aikido. And he was awarded his black belt from Kishomaru Ueshiba, which is the son of Morihei Ueshiba. And he became a black belt in Aikido as well. So, long story short, World War II ended. The guy went back to New York. He was living in New York, and obviously New York, where the Bronx. Back in the '60s, like it was not like a pleasant scenario right there. So obviously he wanted to, be able to teach like a certain form of combat over there. And he first started, showing Aikido, but he learned that he knew at that point that Aikido was not gonna be like feasible for the Bronx. So, to my opinion, and probably it's a little bit controversial, like for a lot of people, like to my opinion, the first form in what it's called like MMA, at least to myself, was actually what he did with Miyama-Ryu Jujutsu, which is the Japanese style of Jiu-Jitsu that I did. Um, because he combined judo, he combined aikido, he combined combat like arts from the military, you know, and then he brought it to the Bronx, New York, back in the days when there were like people using like clubs and chains and knives, and it was pretty rough. So I started training the like Miyama Ryu in DR actually started in 1975. Um, and but I started training in 1999. I mean, I was my house was not easy. I had very rough like childhood with my parents, especially my dad was a little bit violent, if you want to call it that way. So obviously, like my brother and I, very respectful. I mean, we didn't have any type of fear like for anybody, no one except for our dad, because that was the one person that we could not raise our hand to do something about it. So all that anger, all those emotions, everything, we put it into this form of martial art that we found it, um, and made it our home. It was our family at that point, and so that's how I started jiu-jitsu per se. That was in 1999. I was really hooked to the style, the martial art, the idea, everything. I loved it, and I mean, I was one of the I became a black belt in that martial art in like 2.5 years, which is one of the fastest at that point. All I needed was people always were joking about like me having a bed there, um, because that's all I like. There was like left out, like I was there all the time, every hour. I made it myself my lifestyle. So long story short, I became currently have a kaiden. That's the rank in that style. which is like 8-9 degree black belt for you guys to understand. And while doing, this Japanese jiu-jitsu, I really, again, I told you that the first form of mixed martial art that I learned, this is our third world country at the very end. So MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, none of that started, not at like, probably 1999, 2000, by the hands of Abraham Tabar and Giancarlos Valdez in Dominican Republic. They pretty much started everything there, like the move. That was this dream. There was Royce Gracie. They saw it. They wanted something, that could be relatable. They started, confronting every single martial art the same way. Like, oh yeah, like, what is it that you do? Karate? Oh, that sucks. What is it? Aikido? That's a shit. What is it? So they started confronting every single martial art, and they got pretty noticeable about like doing that. And so yeah, like obviously, I felt a lot for the style that I was like practicing, and we didn't want it to be confrontational because at the end of the day, it was merely purely self defense. Like the goal for Miyama-Ryu is not to hang a medal on your wall; it was to preserve life. So like eventually, again, this is the first form of martial art, MMA system. So the one thing that I knew that was missing out of the puzzle was actually doing some groundwork. So this is when I started, to mix in a little bit of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which that was like, thanks to Giancarlos Valdez, which is a high legit black belt in Dominican Republic, and one of the founders as well. So he invited a couple of like friend of mine on that, and so we started like doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu to complement that. And long story short, 10.5 years later, I'm here in the U.S. I'm training under Checkbat and Professor Juan Repping. And I just got my Brazilian black belt, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, like a week ago. So I made a long story very short. I think like 5 minutes. So I hope you like the introduction, my good friend Jay.
Yeah, I love it. So
congratulations. Well, you certified in a lot of things. Certified killers.
now
What it sounds
show
like.
them what's a Mao de Vaca. So now that they know the entire story behind the jiu-jitsu and how you started, now what's the Mao de Vaca?
Okay, so again, the in Aikido and like modern traditional jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of like flexions to the wrist and stuff like that. So as you can see, I'm very flexible from from my wrist. So I noticed that a lot of people they're just not. So every time I just hold a person like Jay and just hold him like this, and just like he's gonna be screaming like a goat, like ah. So
Well, yours
I love
can
it.
fold like a lawn chair, huh? Yours just comes in on itself.
What was that?
Yeah, yours just folds like a lawn chair, huh?
Goddamn. Obviously it's a matter of like all the years like doing the same thing. I was able to do that, and I found like a loophole, like in my game. So nobody like plays
Use your
that game.
advantage, yeah.
And obviously, I excel in that one. So
You just when they try to go, just give him the wrist, huh?
what can I say?
Arthur says I'll be always the first person that gives you
Yeah.
the black belt.
Arthur, we got a pending conversation, man. So yeah, like my boy Arthur, he made a comment. Again, you training jiu-jitsu, specifically Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It takes a long while, like for you to get your black belt, and it all depends on mat hours, to be honest. Like we've seen people made it in like 3.5 years, which is out of the ordinary. But it usually takes you, like 8, 10, 12 years to make it to black belt. Like, and again, it took me a little bit over 10 years for that. But in the case of Arthur, he knew I was like a brown belt with 4-stripe brown belt, like for a long while. And we had his little, how do you call it? The Christmas Santa, right?
So, yeah. We did a Secret
Santa, yeah.
Secret Santa exchange, and one of the gifts was a gag gift.
Yeah, and he gave me like a black ribbon, saying like, oh yeah, like finally you're a black belt, So I gotta take it. I gotta like put it to you, Arthur. You know, like you motivated me to keep on, like my journey, and finally achieve my long term goal. So, but yes, you were the first one to put a BJJ black belt on my
So,
on
how
my
does
waist.
the
Explain to everyone, how are you made out of rubber?
Well, again, it's every time you go, it's like when you do yoga. Every time you go to and trying to do a little bit of yoga, I mean, you're not the most flexible person like from day one. It's a matter of practicing and overtraining and continuous. I'm stretching. So that's been my thing like my entire life. Like people like, oh, you're not normal. Like yes, I am normal. It's just a matter of like like I've been doing this for such a
that rubber band has been stretching out for 10 years, so
so it's a
it
little
goes
bit,
a little
it's a
more
little
than
bit,
everybody
it's
else.
a little bit freaky because people put me on certain type of like submissions and they're like, oh, it's gonna break, and I was and I'm like,
So
but what can I say?
what happens is people will go in and start rolling with Felix, and they'll and what he'll do, he'll dangle his arm there like this, and higher belts, they know that you can do these, and he's a higher belt, so they're like, oh, okay, easy tap, I'm just gonna get him. So what they do, they grab his arm and then go like this, and then he's out there with the biggest grin on his face, like, didn't work, huh? So yeah, so he'll kind of like those fish that like dangle their tails, or what's that fish that's like deep down in a water, has a little light thingy?
Anglerfish.
Anglerfish, yeah. So he dangles that thing in front, to get them
Yeah.
trapped. So that's what he
He
does.
So you said you just got your black belt, right? Do you have to go through a test for that?
Well,
Or is it
every
just a
system,
recognized?
we are under the checkmat affiliation, and like every professor is different, and they every professor has its own way of teaching, of like the promotion system. Generally, again, if you've been training consistently for the past, let's say from like white to blue, you take like a year at a minimum. Like if your professor considers to promote you at that point, I mean, there's nothing to prove, So you don't need a test for that, If it's actually promoting you, is because he knows that you have the necessary requirements for you to be on the upper belt, And again, it's not just a physical requirement. It's not like it's also mentally, but also as well, it's on a technique level. You need to be really up there,
Got you. So you've had it in both cases where they feel like you're ready to be promoted and they promote you, or you've had to take tests as well?
Fortunately, I haven't been able I haven't taken any tests for that.
Okay.
I was promoted from white belt to blue belt in a little bit less than a year. It's a funny story because I went with a couple of friends of mine. Nelson Pimentel and Angel Campos. We went to. They were secretly training BJJ. That we all did traditional jiu-jitsu on the Miyama-Ryu side. But they were secretly training BJJ. And we're training BJJ and we're going to a tournament in Miami, So again, we were living in the R, so like the only form of like international, like competition, was actually going to Miami. That was like the easiest jump, from the R. So a 2-hour like flight. So, we're going to Miami to this tournament, and there was like a group of like 5 of us, 6 of us. So like, yeah, let's go there. Like, let's support you, whatever, And and we all saw the competition from the outside. I was hooked when I saw that competition, And I came back, and I like immediately, I was like, where do I need to sign? I'm hopping on. I'm jumping into the sport. I love it.